The air of the alien city was heavy with smoke and heat, the streets narrow and filled with noise. People shouted, bargained, and laughed in cruel voices. The market was alive, but not with joy. It was alive with suffering. In the center of this market stood cages made of black iron. Inside them sat alien slaves, thin, weak, broken, each one marked with chains and collars. Some looked away with dead eyes, some whispered for water, and some were too weak to even speak. Among them was one who did not belong there, a young alien girl, her skin pale under the burning suns, her hair tangled and dusty. She was not in a cage like the others. Instead, she was chained to a post. Like a dog, her collar dug into her neck, her wrists bound, the chain so short she could not even stand. The human traveler walked through the market slowly, his boots scraping against the dust. His name was Daniel. He was far from home, just a wanderer looking for supplies. He did not want trouble. He did not want to draw attention, but trouble had a way of finding him. He kept his head low, pretending to be another customer. The market was filled with all kinds of aliens, tall ones with glowing eyes, short ones with scaled skin, and traders who shouted prices as if selling cattle. "Strong arms, strong legs, good worker, buy now cheap," one trader yelled, pulling an alien boy forward. "Perfect for housework, silent, obedient." Another called out, pointing to a weak old woman in chains. Daniel's stomach turned. He hated these places. But in the galaxy they were too common. People sold people and no one cared. Then he heard it, a soft whisper. So quiet he almost missed it. "Human, can you buy me and take me as your slave?" Daniel froze, his eyes turned, and he saw her, the girl chained to the post, her lips dry, her eyes filled with tears. She looked no older than 18, her body weak, her knees bruised from the ground. She was trembling, but her eyes held something else, a spark. He blinked, unsure. Maybe he imagined it, maybe she spoke to someone else. But then she spoke again, her voice cracking. Desperate. "Please, can you buy me? Take me away from here." Daniel's heart thudded. He looked around, but no one else seemed to care. The traders laughed, the crowd moved. To them, she was nothing. Just another broken soul. A fat alien trader noticed Daniel staring. He laughed loudly, slapping his belly. "That one. Worthless. She cannot work, she cannot fight, she is weak, useless. Not even worth half a coin." The crowd laughed with him, pointing at the girl, mocking her. Daniel clenched his jaw. He wanted to look away, to keep walking, but her eyes held him. They were not the eyes of someone begging for food. They were the eyes of someone holding on to the last piece of hope. "Human," the trader shouted again. "You want her? Take her for cheap, buy a dog if you like, she is the same." The girl flinched at his words, but she did not stop looking at Daniel. She pulled her chains forward, her voice breaking. "Please, master, take me. I will serve, I will obey, just don't leave me here." Daniel's hands curled into fists. His heart battled with his mind. He knew the danger. Buying her would mean being marked. The traders would remember him. The enforcers would not forgive him. He would be hunted, but leaving her here felt worse. The marketplace roared with laughter. Aliens shouting bets, some mocking, some curious, everyone waiting to see if the strange human would waste his credits on the weakest slave in the market. Daniel took a step closer, his boots heavy on the dirt. The girl's breath caught, her lips trembled, her eyes widened with the smallest spark of hope. "Please," she whispered one last time, her voice so soft it almost broke. Daniel stood before her, the chain rattling as she reached out her hands, her wrists red and raw from the iron. The crowd quieted for a moment, waiting, watching. The human looked at her, and in that instant he knew. This was not about buying a slave. This was about saving a life everyone else had thrown away. The trader grinned, showing yellow teeth. "So human, what will it be? Do you have the courage, or will you walk away like the rest?" Daniel's silence hung heavy in the air, the girl's trembling breath the only sound between them. The market of chains had seen many buyers, but never one like him. Never one who might change everything with a single choice. And as the suns burned high above, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his answer. The laughter of the market still echoed around Daniel. But in his ears, all he could hear was the trembling voice of the girl, her words pressed into his mind like a knife. "Please, can you buy me and take me as your slave?" The fat trader leaned forward, waving his thick fingers. "Pay a coin, human, pay just one coin, cheaper than a loaf of bread, and she is yours." His voice dripped with mockery, but also greed. The crowd grew louder, some shouting for Daniel to do it, others mocking him. "Look, the human wants a pet, not a worker," one alien hissed. Another laughed, She won't last a week. She will die in his arms. Daniel clenched his jaw. His heart heavy, he told himself to walk away. To keep moving, this was not his fight. Not his world, but every time he looked at her, chained and trembling, he felt his chest tighten. The girl lifted her hands again, pulling against the chain, her wrists bleeding under the iron. Her lips cracked, but her voice came clear. Desperate, Master, please. I will do anything. I will work. I will serve. Just don't leave me here. I cannot stay. I will die. Daniel's stomach twisted. He could see her body shaking, her knees cut from the rough ground, her thin arms bruised with dark marks he had seen suffering before. But never this raw, never this broken. The traitor laughed again. Spitting on the ground, she begged, sweet. Doesn't she, human? But don't be fooled. She is worthless. She cannot cook. She cannot fight. She can barely breathe. The girl's eyes burned at his words, but she did not deny them. Instead, she whispered, I will learn. I will be better. Please take me. Daniel stepped closer. The dust crunching under his boots, the crowd leaned forward, watching, waiting, some with eager faces, some with cruel grins. They wanted a show. They wanted to see if the strange human would make the mistake. The traitor pulled the chain roughly, jerking the girl back so hard she cried out. See, human, even her voice is weak. Not worth even the iron she wears. He jeered. Daniel's fists tightened. His blood burned. He could feel eyes on him, enemies hidden in the crowd, merchants waiting to exploit him, guards pretending not to watch but ready to act. Why me? He finally asked. His voice low, sharp, he looked at the girl. Why did you call out to me? Not anyone else. The girl's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembled. She swallowed before answering. Because you looked at me. Everyone else passed, but you stopped. I saw it in your eyes. You are not like them. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to turn his back, but her voice carried something heavy, something real. The traitor smirked, sensing weakness. Come now, human. Buy her if you wish. Give me your credits, but know this, you will regret it. No master ever keeps a slave like her. She is cursed. She brings only trouble. The girl shook her head, her voice breaking. No curse, master, only pain. Please free me, even if I must serve. I will serve you gladly, just not them, not him, she begged, pulling against the chain so hard her skin tore. Daniel's chest ached. He wanted to pull her away, but he also knew the danger. This market was run by powerful hands. The law was not on his side. Buying her meant stepping into a fire he might not escape. The crowd grew impatient, some shouting, Buy her! Human! Others laughing, Run away, coward! Leave her to rot. The noise rose higher. Like a storm ready to break, Daniel took a breath, his hand moving to his belt where his credits were stored. The traitor's eyes followed, glowing with greed. The girl's breath caught, her whole body leaning forward, her eyes begging, shining through the dirt and tears. Please, she whispered again, softer now, like a prayer. Don't leave me. Silence fell for a moment. The crowd holding its breath, even the traitor leaned closer, waiting. Daniel looked at her, really looked, and he realized it was not just fear in her eyes, it was trust, blind trust, the kind given to someone who might be the last hope. His heart hardened with decision, his voice steady as he spoke. How much? The traitor blinked, then grinned wide, his yellow teeth flashing. 1 coin, human, just 1 coin, a waste for you. But a gift for me. Daniel pulled out the coin. Heavy and dull, the crowd gasped. Some cheering, some cursing. The traitor snatched it with greedy hands, laughing. She is yours, human. May the curse follow you too. The chain was shoved into Daniel's hands. The iron cold, heavy. The girl trembled as she felt the weight shift. Her eyes filled with tears, she whispered again. Master, but this time it was not fear. It was relief. The crowd erupted, voices shouting, mocking, laughing. But Daniel ignored them. He bent down, meeting the girl's eyes. Get up. You're coming with me. She tried to stand, her legs weak, her body stumbling. He caught her before she fell, her thin frame light as air. She held on to him as if her life depended on it, because it did. Behind them, whispers spread, guards shifted, shadows moved. Daniel felt the eyes of hunters settling on his back. This was only the beginning. But for now he had chosen. He had taken the chain, and nothing would ever be the same. The chain felt heavy in Daniel's hand, colder than iron, heavier than stone. It was not just metal. It was a life, a choice, and a burden that now belonged to him. The girl stumbled beside him, her bare feet scraping against the rough ground, each step a struggle, her knees weak from days without food, her voice barely a whisper. Master, please. Don't let go, Daniel kept his eyes sharp. Scanning the crowd, the laughter had died down. Replaced with whispers, the traders smirked. But others were not smiling. Alien guards in dark armor stood at the edges of the market. Their eyes following him, they said nothing. But their silence was louder than shouts. He moved quickly, weaving through the stalls. Past cages filled with slaves, past merchants shouting about their goods. Every step he took, he felt the weight of stairs digging into his back. The girl coughed, her thin frame shaking. Daniel slowed for just a moment. Bending low, "Can you walk?" he asked. His voice rough but not unkind. She nodded weakly, her hair falling across her bruised face. "I can. Just don't leave me." The chain rattled as she tried to move faster, but her body betrayed her. She stumbled. Falling hard onto the dust, the crowd laughed again, some pointing, some jeering. Daniel bent down quickly, lifting her to her feet. "Stay close," he whispered. "No matter what." As they neared the edge of the market, a voice called out behind them, sharp, commanding, "Human, stop." Daniel froze, his body tense. He turned his head just enough to see two guards approaching, their armor gleaming black, their weapons slung across their shoulders. The crowd hushed, waiting for the show. "You cannot just walk away," the taller guard sneered. "She is property of the guild." "You bought her?" "Yes, but paperwork must be signed. Taxes must be paid." The fat trader from before waddled forward, grinning like a rat. "Yes, yes, human. You forgot the papers, the fee, the tax. Pay more if you wish to leave." Daniel's hand tightened on the chain. He could see it in their eyes. This was no fee, this was a trap. They wanted to keep him tangled, to bleed him dry, and if he refused, they would take her back, maybe worse. The girl clutched his sleeve, her whisper urgent. "Please, master, don't let them, don't give me back." Daniel's chest burned. His mind raced. He could not fight here. Not in the middle of the market. Too many eyes, too many enemies. He needed a way out. "I already paid," he said firmly, his voice steady. "The deal is done." The guard smirked, stepping closer. "Not until the guild says so." "Human, hand her over, or hand over more credits." Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew if he stayed one more minute, he'd lose her. Maybe his own life, too. His eyes darted to the narrow alleys beyond the stalls, tight paths between crumbling stone walls. Without another word, he grabbed the girl's arm, pulled her close and pushed forward, the chain clattering as they broke into a run. The crowd roared in shock, laughter turning to shouts.
"He runs, the human runs."
Someone yelled. The guards cursed, charging after them. The girl stumbled, but Daniel pulled her along. His legs strong, his steps quick, weaving through the alleys, crates and barrels in his path. He shoved them aside, the sounds of boots and armor clashing behind him. "Faster," he hissed, dragging her through a narrow turn. Her breath ragged, her eyes wide with fear. The alley twisted into a darker lane, the walls dripping with slime. The stench of waste heavy in the air. Daniel pressed her against the wall for a moment, his hand over her mouth to silence her breathing. Footsteps thundered past the other end, shouts echoing. But for a second they were unseen. Her eyes trembled as she looked up at him, her body shaking. But when he removed his hand, she whispered, why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his chest rising with heavy breath. "Because no one else would," he said simply. The girl's lips parted as if she wanted to say more. But then voices rose again. Closer now, the guards splitting, searching every corner. Daniel pulled her along, through another turn, deeper into the maze of the city, but her legs buckled. She collapsed hard to the ground, coughing blood. "Get up," he urged, crouching beside her, but her body trembled too much. Her skin pale, her breath short. "I can't," she whispered, tears running down her dirty cheeks. "Leave me, master. Save yourself." Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked at her, truly looked. Her body broken, her spirit nearly shattered, yet still she begged for him to live, not herself. He shook his head, fierce. "Not leaving you," he said, his arm sliding under her frail frame, lifting her easily, her chain rattling against his chest. She gasped, shocked at his strength, her head resting weakly on his shoulder. "Why?" she whispered again, her voice faint. Daniel's eyes hardened, his steps quick as the sound of guards closed in. "Because you asked?" The city stretched ahead, alleys twisting, shadows shifting, hunters closing in, but the human did not stop. He carried her deeper into the dark. And for the first time the girl closed her eyes, not in despair but in fragile hope. The escape had begun, but the hunt had only just started. The night air outside the market was colder. sharp winds cutting through the broken alleys. Daniel carried the girl in his arms, his breath heavy, his boots striking fast against the stones, the weight of her chain pressing against his chest like a reminder of the risk he had taken. Behind him, faint echoes of shouts still rang, guards searching, hunters prowling. But for now the chase slowed, the maze of the city giving him cover. At last he reached an abandoned shelter, a half-broken building with walls cracked and doors missing. Dust and shadows filled the place, but it was shelter, a hiding place. He laid the girl gently on the ground, her body trembling, her breath shallow. He tore a strip from his own cloak, dipping it into a small canteen of water, carefully pressing it to her lips. She sipped slowly, her eyes blinking open, glowing faintly in the dim light, not like human eyes, but sharp and strange, carrying secrets she had not spoken. "You should not have done it," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "They will come for you." For us both. Daniel crouched beside her, his expression steady. "Then tell me why," he said firmly. "Why did you beg me? Why did you choose me in that cursed market?" Her lips trembled. Her hands clutched the chain around her neck, as if the iron itself held her words locked inside. For a moment she said nothing. Only the sound of her shaky breath filled the silence. Then she looked at him, her voice breaking. "Because I am not what they told you. I was not born a slave." Daniel frowned, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Tears slid down her bruised cheeks. But her voice grew stronger. "My name is Lysara. I am from a house once powerful. My people ruled a province of stars. I had family, a life, but it was stolen from me. My kin betrayed me. My own blood sold me to the guild." Daniel's chest tightened. He had expected pain, but not this. "Your own family," he muttered. The words bitter. She nodded slowly. "Yes, they feared me. I was different. I carried something they could not control. So they called me cursed, worthless, and when I resisted, they chained me. They sold me like cattle." Her voice cracked with fury and sorrow, her fists trembling against the ground. Daniel studied her carefully, the bruises, the scars, the broken body, but in her eyes he saw something else, a fire buried beneath the ashes. "You asked me to buy you," he said softly. "Was it only for freedom or something more?" Lysara looked away, her breath uneven. "Freedom means nothing alone. I begged you because I saw your eyes. You looked at me as if I was not an animal, not trash but a person, and I thought, maybe you could save me." Daniel leaned back, running a hand across his face. Her words weighed heavy. He had not planned this. He was just passing through. But now he was in the middle of a storm that was not his own. "You should know," Lysara whispered, her voice turning dark. "They will not stop. The guild, my family, the hunters, they will all come. They cannot allow me to live free. And now you are marked too." Outside, the wind howled, carrying faint sounds of boots in the distance. Daniel stiffened, his hand moving to the small weapon at his belt. "They're already searching," he muttered, his voice low. "We don't have much time." Lysara turned her head, her eyes locking on him, sharp even through the pain. "You could still leave me, Master. Walk away now. Save yourself. No one would blame you." Her words were steady, but her eyes betrayed her, begging silently. Terrified of being abandoned again, Daniel met her gaze, steady as stone. "Not leaving you," he said firmly. Something broke in her then, a tear sliding down her cheek. But this time it was not from despair. It was from something else, something fragile. For a moment silence hung between them, broken only by the sound of the night. Daniel shifted, checking the broken doorway, his ears sharp. "Tell me more," he demanded. "If I am to protect you, I need to know everything." Lysara hesitated, then nodded weakly. "My family. They feared me because of what I carry," she whispered. "There is power in my bloodline, power that frightens even the guild. I was supposed to inherit it, but instead they called me cursed, and sold me before I could awaken." Daniel's brows furrowed, unease stirring inside him. "Power," he repeated. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, I do not know its full reach, but they do, and that is why they fear me. That is why they will not stop until I am back in chains. Or dead." The sound of boots grew louder, closer. Daniel's eyes sharpened, his grip on his weapon tightening. He glanced back at her. "Then we run again." She pushed herself weakly to her knees, wincing in pain. "I can try, Master, but my body—" Daniel cut her off, shaking his head. "Don't call me Master, not anymore. You are not my slave." Her eyes widened, her lips parting as if she did not understand. "But then why? Why carry me? Why fight for me?" Daniel looked at her with a steady fire in his eyes. "Because you asked," he repeated, "and because no one else would." Her breath caught. Her chain rattled as her hands trembled. For the first time since he met her, she allowed herself to hope, but the sound outside grew closer, shadows moving through the broken alleys, hunters searching, voices barking orders. The secret was revealed, but the danger had only sharpened. Daniel rose to his feet, offering her his hand. "We leave now," he said, his voice steady. Lysara placed her trembling hand in his, her chain dragging against the ground, her body weak but her spirit burning. Together they stepped into the night again, not as master and slave, but as something more dangerous. For the galaxy had just been reminded that humans could choose, and sometimes that choice could change everything. The city grew darker as night deepened, the moons half hidden behind clouds of smoke. Daniel led Lysara through narrow alleys, his grip firm on her hand, her chain dragging softly against the stones. Every shadow seemed to whisper danger. Every corner felt like a trap behind them. The voices of hunters echoed, harsh and steady, boots pounding on the streets, weapons rattling. The guild had unleashed their enforcers. Not merchants now, but killers. Lysara stumbled, her breath uneven, her body weak. Daniel slowed just enough to keep her steady. "Stay close," he whispered, his eyes sharp, scanning the rooftops. "I can hear them," she whispered back, her voice shaking. "They are many, too many. They will not stop until they find us." Daniel nodded, his face grim. He knew she was right. The guild wanted her back and him punished. They could not allow a human to break their law in front of so many eyes. He guided her into a broken courtyard, old walls covered in moss, shattered statues of forgotten gods scattered on the ground. "The place smelled of rust and ash. Rest here," he said softly, lowering her to a stone bench, her body trembling, her face pale under the moonlight. She clutched his arm, fear in her eyes. "They will find us, they always do. I know these hunters. They track like beasts." Daniel crouched beside her, pulling out a small pack from his belt. Inside was bread, hard but edible, and a flask of water. He pressed them into her hands. "Eat, drink. You need strength." Her eyes widened, as if she had not expected kindness. Her hands shook as she took a bite, chewing slowly, tears forming in her eyes. I don't remember the last time I ate without being struck," she whispered. Daniel's jaw clenched, his chest heavy. He wanted to speak, but before he could, a sound cut through the night, footsteps slow and deliberate echoing against the stone. He rose quickly, pulling her behind him, his hand on the weapon at his side, the air thick with tension. From the shadows stepped 3 hunters, their armor black and silver, their faces hidden under masks, their eyes glowing red through visors. One carried a blade as long as an arm. Another held a whip crackling with energy. The third, taller than the rest, carried a rifle slung across his back. "There he is," the tallest one growled, his voice mechanical through the mask. "The human who thinks he can steal from the guild." The second one cracked the whip, sparks dancing in the air. "And the girl who belongs to us," Lysara gasped, pressing closer to Daniel, her voice breaking. "Please, don't let them take me." Daniel stood firm, his voice calm but sharp. "She doesn't belong to anyone." "Not anymore," the hunters laughed. Cruel and low, the tallest one stepped forward. "You think you can fight us, human? You are alone, weak. And far from home. Hand her over, and maybe we will spare your life." Daniel's grip on his weapon tightened, his heart steady. "No," he said simply. The hunters hissed in anger, spreading out to surround them, their boots crunching against the broken stones. Lysara clutched his sleeve, whispering fast. "You cannot win, master, not against them. They are trained. They kill without mercy." Daniel's eyes remained locked on the hunters, his jaw set like stone. "Then let them try." The first one struck with the whip, a crack of lightning splitting the night. Daniel pulled Lysara aside just in time, the whip smashing into the wall, stone exploding into shards. The second charged with the blade, swinging down hard. Daniel blocked with his weapon, sparks flying, the impact rattling his arm but not breaking him. Lysara cried out, watching as the hunters pressed forward. Her body trembling, she wanted to help, but her chains rattled, her legs too weak. Daniel fought with raw fury, each strike calculated, each movement fueled not by training alone but by determination. The hunters were faster, stronger, but he was relentless, refusing to fall, refusing to give her up. The whip lashed again, cutting across his arm, blood staining his sleeve, but Daniel did not stop. He swung hard, knocking the blade wielder back, his weapon cracking against the hunter's chest. The tall one raised his rifle, aiming straight at Lysara, her breath caught. her eyes wide with terror. "No," Daniel roared. Stepping in front of her, his body shield against the shot, he tackled the hunter, slamming him against the wall, the rifle clattering to the ground. The hunters snarled, regrouping, their movements sharp and deadly. Daniel's breath heavy, sweat mixing with blood. But his eyes burned with fire. "You are only a man," one hunter spat. "Why fight so hard for a worthless slave?" Daniel's voice came steady. "Fierce because she's not worthless, and because no one else would fight for her." Lysara's heart pounded, tears streaming down her face. No one had ever spoken for her like that. No one had ever stood between her and death. The hunters circled again, their fury rising, Daniel's stance unshaken, his weapon ready, his will iron. The night was filled with the sound of chains rattling, blades clashing, and the heartbeat of a human who refused to surrender. Lysara pressed her trembling hands to her chest, whispering through her tears, "He doesn't want to own me. He wants to save me." And as the hunters closed in once more, the truth became clear. This was not a fight for property. It was a fight for freedom. The hunters in the dark thought they had trapped their prey, but they had awakened something else, a human willing to fight until the very end. The courtyard echoed with the hiss of weapons. The hunters circled Daniel and Lysara like wolves, their eyes glowing red through their visors, their armor black as night. Each step they took pressed heavier on the air. Daniel stood tall, his body tired, his arm bleeding where the whip had cut. But his grip on his weapon did not shake. Behind him, Lysara pressed close, her hands clutching his sleeve, her breath shallow. The tallest hunter raised his rifle again, his voice cold. "Last chance, human. Hand her over and we let you crawl away alive." Daniel's jaw clenched, his eyes burning with steady fire. "No," he said firmly. "Not now. Not ever." The hunters snarled, their movements quick. The one with the whip struck first, lightning cracking through the air. Daniel ducked, pulling Lysara with him. The whip split the stone bench in two, sparks raining across the ground. The blade wielder lunged next, his sword gleaming under the moon. Daniel blocked, the clash of metal ringing loud. His arms shook with the force, but he shoved back, teeth gritted. The rifle fired, a beam of light tearing across the courtyard. Daniel rolled aside, the shot striking the wall behind him. Stone exploding into dust, Lysara screamed. The echo carrying far into the night. Daniel rose, his chest burning, his breath heavy but his stance unbroken. The hunters growled in frustration, unused to prey standing this long. "You are only a man," the blade wielder sneered, circling him. "You cannot win against trained hunters." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "I don't need to win against hunters. I only need to protect her." The words struck Lysara like fire, her heart pounding, tears sliding down her cheeks. No one had ever spoken of her protection before. No one had ever stood between her and chains. The hunters charged together, their weapons flashing. Daniel fought back with raw fury, each strike fueled not just by survival, but by defiance. The whip lashed across his side, burning his flesh, but he pushed forward, slamming his weapon into the chest of the blade wielder, sending him crashing to the ground. The tall hunter roared, swinging the rifle like a club. Daniel caught the blow with his arm, pain shooting through his bones. But he countered with a strike to the hunter's mask, the visor cracking under the force. The fight was brutal, fast, each second stretching into eternity. Lysara's eyes followed every move, fear and hope battling in her heart. She whispered, almost a prayer, "Please don't fall. Please don't leave me." Daniel's body screamed with pain, his wounds burning, but his spirit refused to break. He had faced soldiers before, battles before, but this was different. This was not for duty, not for glory. This was for one girl who had nothing, one girl who had asked him not to leave her. The whip lashed again, wrapping around his arm, sparks biting into his skin. The hunter pulled hard, trying to drag him down. Daniel roared, yanking with all his strength. Pulling the hunter off balance, he swung hard, slamming the butt of his weapon into the hunter's jaw, the crack echoing through the night. The blade wielder staggered back to his feet, charging again, but Daniel met him head-on, their weapons clashing in a storm of sparks, Daniel's arms heavy. But his will sharp, he twisted, driving his blade into the hunter's shoulder, the scream piercing the air. The tallest hunter raised his rifle for another shot. But Lysara cried out, throwing a broken stone with all her weak strength. It struck the mask just enough to throw his aim. The shot fired wide, missing Daniel by inches. Daniel seized the chance, slamming into the tall hunter, tackling him to the ground. their weapons clattering across the stone. Fists and fury replaced blades. The courtyard became chaos, sparks, dust, blood, and the sound of chains rattling as Lysera crawled closer, her voice trembling. "You're fighting for me, but I'm still chained, please. Please don't die for nothing." Daniel's breath ragged, his fist slamming into the hunter's mask again and again, until the glass cracked, revealing alien eyes wide with fear. The hunter shoved him back, but Daniel rose again, unshaken. "You think I'm just a man?" Daniel spat, his voice sharp. "But a man who refuses to give up is something you can't kill." The hunters hesitated, their confidence shaken, their prey bleeding but unbroken. Daniel stepped forward, his weapon raised, his voice like iron. "Come again if you dare, but she will never go back to chains." "Not while I still breathe." The hunters looked at each other, then slowly retreated, dragging their wounded with them, their voices filled with rage. "This is not over, human. The guild will come for you, and when they do, not even your courage will save you." Daniel stood tall, his chest heaving, blood staining his clothes, but his eyes steady. He did not lower his weapon until the hunters vanished into the shadows. Silence fell, broken only by Lysera's sobs. She crawled to him, her hands trembling as she touched his wounded arm. "You fought them all. For me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel looked down at her, his voice steady, though heavy with exhaustion. "I didn't buy you to own you. I fought to free you." Her tears fell harder, but her lips curved with fragile hope. "Then free me now," she whispered, her eyes on the chain around her neck. Daniel raised his weapon, the blade pressing against the iron. With one strong strike, the chain shattered, the collar falling to the ground with a heavy clang. Lysera gasped, touching her bare neck, her eyes wide, her voice shaking. "I'm free," Daniel nodded, his voice low but sure. "Yes, free, but freedom means nothing if you don't live. Stay with me, and we will survive this." She leaned into him, her tears wetting his chest. For the first time in years, she felt the air without chains. For the first time, she belonged not to a master but to hope. But far away, in the dark streets of the city, horns echoed. More hunters were being called. The guild would not stop. The stand of the human had begun a war. The broken collar lay on the ground, its iron links glinting under the pale light of the moons. For Lysera, it was more than metal. It was years of pain, humiliation, and despair, now shattered by the strike of one human's hand. She touched her bare neck again and again, as if to be certain the weight was truly gone. Her tears fell freely, her lips trembling with words she could not speak. Daniel stood nearby, breathing hard, blood still dripping from his wounds, his weapon heavy in his hand, his body battered but unyielding, his eyes scanning the shadows of the courtyard, listening for hunters who might return. "Daniel," Lysera whispered, her voice weak but filled with awe. "You freed me." "No one has ever freed me," he looked at her, his face calm though exhaustion pressed on him. "I told you I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you to save you." Her chest tightened, her heart beating wildly. "But why?" she asked softly. "You risked your life, you fought the guild. You made yourself an enemy of hunters. For me, why?" Daniel's gaze softened, he crouched down, meeting her eyes. "Because you asked," he said quietly, "and because no one else would." The words struck her deeper than any chain ever had, her tears blurred her vision. She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "Then let me stay with you. Let me walk with you. I am free now, but I do not want to be free alone." Daniel held her hand, steady and strong. "If you walk with me, you are not a slave, you are not a curse. You are someone worth saving." For a long moment, silence filled the courtyard, broken only by the distant horns of the guild calling their hunters. The night was not done, the danger not over, but for Lysera. The chains inside her heart were falling one by one. Daniel rose, helping her to her feet, her legs still weak, her body trembling, but she stood, unchained, unbroken. They moved through the alleys, slower now, cautious, Daniel keeping her close, his eyes sharp. She leaned on him for strength. Every step forward a reminder that she was no longer dragged by iron but carried by hope. The city behind them roared with unrest, whispers spreading fast. Word of a human who bought a worthless slave and then broke her collar. Word of hunters who had been beaten back. Markets that had been defied in the taverns. The merchants laughed nervously in the barracks. Guards whispered of human stubbornness, and in the halls of the guild, the masters raged, smashing their tables, shouting for vengeance. But in the broken streets, far from the reach of power, one girl walked free for the first time. At the edge of the city, Daniel stopped. The desert stretched ahead, vast and empty under the twin moons. It was dangerous, but it was freedom. No walls, no chains, only endless sand and stars. Lysara stared at it, her heart trembling. I don't know what waits beyond, she whispered. But it cannot be worse than what I leave behind. Daniel nodded, his voice steady. Whatever waits, we face it together. She turned to him, her eyes still wet with tears. But her lips curved with the smallest smile. Fragile but real. Together, she repeated. Her voice stronger. They stepped into the desert. The sand crunching under their feet. The wind sharp against their faces. But neither looked back. Every step forward was a choice. A defiance, a promise. Behind them, the broken collar glinted in the dust. A symbol that chains could be broken. That destiny could be changed. And though hunters would come again, though the guild would not forgive, a story had already begun to spread across the galaxy. A story of a human who bought a slave not to keep her, but to free her. A story of a girl once chained like a dog, now walking unbound beside him. Lysara glanced at Daniel as they walked, her voice quiet but filled with something new, something fragile and powerful. You gave me more than freedom. You gave me back my life. Daniel looked ahead, the stars bright above them, his voice calm. Then live it. Live it as someone who is no one's property, no one's curse. Live it as yourself. Her heart burned with gratitude, with hope, with a bond she had never known before. And as the night stretched long, as the stars shone brighter, the galaxy shifted in small but certain ways, because sometimes it only takes one choice, one act of defiance, one human standing in the face of cruelty, to remind the universe that chains can break, that hope can return, that destiny can change. The market had laughed, the hunters had mocked, the guild had threatened, but in the end, the chains lay broken on the ground, and in the silence of the desert, the human and the freed girl walked side by side, toward a tomorrow no one could yet imagine.